Okay, so the question is, what's considered to be tzedakah, and what two things? What's considered to be tzedakah, and what uses can Meiser Kesafim be put to? Okay, and so if we take a look at the top on the left, so the Ramah is very strict. Nobody follows the Ramah, but he's very strict. He says, Shulchan Aruch Yardei Asim Reish Matesik Unav, and the Ramah says, Be'ein Lasos in Meiser Shlo Dvar Mitzvah. You should not do for your Meiser any Dvar Mitzvah. Goneos Beis HaKnesses or Shar Dvar Mitzvah, such as giving candles to shul or any Dvar Mitzvah, Rakinenu Laniyim should only give it to poor people. Okay, so he's very, very strict about Meiser. He says basically it's the same thing like tzedakah, only the poor people. So the source not to give it to poor people is to use it with other things. So is in the Shla Kodesh on the right side of the page. Shla Inyan Tzedakah Meiser. Mitzvah Shem Ma'aram Matz. That's one of the Rishonim. Laskir leben krovo ashir. I have a relative who's rich, but he doesn't want to pay for an extra hour of instruction for his kid for learning Torah. So can I pay for that extra hour out of my Meiser Kesafim? Or do I say it's not tzedakah? The guy has money to give to his son. It's not tzedakah, so I can't do it, right? So he says that Hadas noited the yochel askir. He says yes. He's inclined to say that yes. That which the Charedim says, Maram, sorry. Sheino Rashai says the Ramah would say that Sheino Rashai l'seitz masa ben krovo ashir, that you can't give it to the son of a relative if the guy is rich. Iklameim l'shar tzrochav. That's for perhaps the other needs. Aval Torah efsheshi litain lo. But learning Torah, we bend the rules. Im ein avrot litain, the father doesn't want to give. And this is what I tell people: any mitzvah which comes to your hand, which includes Leo's bar bris, to if you have to make to cover bris milah. Presumably now it's not clear for your own bris or just somebody else's bris, but it sounds like bar bris means even for a bris you're making yourself. And again, it sounds like even achnosas kala for yourself. To buy books and learn from them, and learn to us to learn them. If he doesn't have the capacity to do it and still give additional meiser, or he wouldn't do it unless he could use the meiser Kesafim, oz yikach mina meiser. Then he can take from the meiser itself akan l'shono. So the Shloah is quoting this Maram Metz, and the Maram Metz evidently says quite clearly that you can use Meiser Kesafim for many other purposes other than just simply for tzedakah. So, and the bottom left, you see that there is the Chazam Sofer kind of puts out a compromise here. Chazam Sofer, you're there, your tshuva Reish Lamed Aleph. Immediately when you start taking Meiser Kesafim, he made a condition. You can do a dvar, you should be able to do a dvar mitzvah from it. And the Maril, who's one who says you can't give it to anything else in tzedakah, would concede to the Maram who says you can give it. The Maril says can't give it any other purpose like tzedakah, would concede to the Maram who says you can give it to any purpose. Now, it's not just when you start giving meiser. If you start giving meiser, but you know the halacha, the same thing would apply, right? You could obviously say, okay, I didn't know this till now, so now I'm going to change how I give Meiser Kesafim. So he brings down here that what most modern authorities recommend following the above procedure. Most modern they recommend following Chazam Sofer. That's what Shlomo Zalman Auerbach has to answer the questions put by the group. Makes following 3 general points. 1, there are no rigid rules in the Talmud of Shulchan Aruch for Meiser Kesafim, such as for Shabbos or for Shechita. Some of his own answers, which we're going to see, are based on responsa, tshuvas, while others are his own personal view, the Shlomo Zalman's personal opinion. But it says that many responsa also represent the personal views of the authors. He says, okay, but I'm no worse than them. There's many people who wrote tshuvas. They also wrote in this manner where there's no hard and fast halacha, they gave their opinions. Okay, 2, before a person separates Meiser Kesafim for the first time, he should state that he enters into commitment bli neder, without a vow, or you should include Meiser Kesafim as general at Torah Nedarim on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Otherwise, problems relating to minhag may be transformed into problems relating to the Torah command of fulfilling vows. So all Ma'aser Kesafim should always be bli neder. And if you forgot to say bli neder, then when you're matir neder erev Rosh Hashanah, you should be matir neder on this as well. Because it becomes Ma'aser Kesafim is a nice custom, but a neder is a doraisa. Okay. And finally, number 3, a difference should be made between charity in the narrow sense of poor people and their needs, hereinafter called primary charity, and charity in a wider sense, hereinafter called secondary charity. Even though most authorities allow the use of ma'aser for secondary charities, should remember that the major aim ma'aser is for primary charities. Therefore, the use for secondary charities should be occasional rather than regular. A person should not devote a whole year's ma'aser money to secondary charities. He should also specify when he first reads ma'aser that he has in mind using it for secondary charities. So this is a very fundamental principle in Hilchot Tzedakah in general, that there are primary needs and secondary needs. Every community has primary needs and secondary needs. But to give to Chaverim or to Hatzalah, Hatzalah might be different. To give to Hatzalah might be a primary need. To give Chaverim is a secondary need, right? So therefore, the preference is given to Hatzalah over Chaverim. Okay? But that doesn't mean Chaverim should get no money. The question is how you allocate it.
What is you keep saying Ma'aser Kesafim? Is there any other types of Ma'aser? Aside from like
you say as opposed to Ma'aser, agricultural Ma'aser from produce and things like that. No, the regular, the classical Ma'aser.
You're talking about Ma'aser. You're talking about like 10%.
Yeah.
Or even Chomish and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about here. Yeah.
Okay, not taking out for the Kohen, not for
No, right. That's his comments, then he's not talking about that.
Right.
That's required. That's not minhag. This is minhag.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? So he goes very nice through the hierarchy of different tzedakahs. And the highest category of tzedakah is pidyon shvuim. He's put in a higher category than all others. Since the captor, whoever takes the shavui, has complete power over the captive's life and health. Okay, and the Rambam speaks about this at length. We don't have to go through the Rambam Mitzvah right now, but the Rambam in Hilchos Taniyim, Paraches Matnos Taniyim, Paraches L'Achiyut says pidyon shvuim is the highest form of tzedakah, and this is something which is universally recognized. If you have somebody who's pidyon shvuim, now that thing is like this. Very often people say that somebody in an American jail who's there for having cheated the government is pidyon shvuim, or that Rubashkin was pidyon shvuim. That's not necessarily the case, right? You have, first of all, sometimes
if you do something wrong,
right. So by Rubashkin, you can make the case. Well, the judgment was unfair, but Lamaisa, his life is not in danger. In other words, the pidyon shvuim in the old time meant that the life is in danger. If you leave him as a shovel, he's going to be killed, might be killed. So Bismana said it's hard to say that to somebody's in American jail, unless it's a very dangerous prison, that their life is in danger. Okay, if it would be, then pidyon should apply. Probably it's not. Okay, so that is the highest category is true pidyon shvuim. The second category is supporting the poor, and there's a priority list. Okay, and we all know the priority list. Person only needs to take priority over those of anyone else, and he's not obliged to give charity until he has enough to meet them. But this applies only to the essential minimum needs of food, shelter, and clothing. A person's own family or poor have priority over other poor people. His parents come first, but only if he cannot afford to keep them otherwise. If he can, it is humiliating to use his charity funds for this purpose. As the Shulchan Aruch says, and you're there, if he has the capacity to feed his parents without resorting to Ma'aser Kesafim, tavo me'era, then a curse should befall, and we should find us avi mod tzedakah shlo, somebody who uses tzedakah money to support his father or mother. Okay, so it's better not to. Next come children above the age at which one is obliged to maintain them. The Shach from Shabbos HaKohen says it's age 6, but Ramesh Feinstein suggests that this applied only 4 times when children usually start to work at this age. Nowadays, the obligation to support children applies until the age at which they normally earn a living. That's Ramesh's chiddush. Because according to Ramesh, you have to support your child until he's 18, or 24, or 36, depending on how old he is when he can make a parnos on his own. So according to Moshe, come out of tremendous chumrah. Because according to the Shach and the classic letter of law, any support of your child after the age 6 is a form of tzedakah. Up to age 6, Chazal required you to support your kid. But after that, you're not required. So Moshe is a very big chiddush. And it's a big chumrah, right? And it says, they do not earn a living until they marry and live with their parents. Meanwhile, the parents' obligation to support them continues. And so ma'aser money may not be used for this purpose. Okay, so the... again, it's a very, very big chumrah, but it doesn't make sense. And he says in the next paragraph that Moshe Sternbach also has this view, but he's not sure about that. But it's better not to use Ma'aseh Kesafim for that. Okay, then that's children. Next, other relatives come next. Brothers on the father's side precede those on the mother's side, forming considered near relations. Next come poor persons of the donor's own town. Neighbors first, then poor persons from Eretz Yisrael, and finally poor persons from other towns outside Eretz Yisrael. According to Chasim Sofer, Yerushalayim has precedence over all other towns in Eretz Yisrael. Now, again, it's a very difficult concept. I mean, if you told us the Kupat Ha'ir, they say you're crazy, right? Bnei Brak is just as close to Yerushalayim, right? But it's not really something where precedence means you have to give to this. It means all other things be equal. If you have a question where to give, so give there. But not that you can choose to give to anything you want, any person, any place. Again, if you're a Mesupuk, who you want to give to, so we give you this hierarchy. But otherwise, you can decide. You don't have to actually go according to the hierarchy.
If you have $1,000 of Meiser money, and we're talking about tzedakah, we're not really talking about Meiser, right? So
Okay.
that doesn't necessarily apply. But if I have, let's say, $1,000 that I want to give as tzedakah, and let's say the person has a relative that's a brother who cannot afford anything, is he mechuyev now to give the whole?
No,
Because we just said it's not a chiyuv. But does he have the obligation to first give the $1,000 fully to his brother?
no.
Or should he split it up?
He should allocate to his brother first, but he's entitled to split it up. If he's Mesupuk, if he doesn't really have another cause that he wants to get, that he is near and dear to his heart.
You always find a cause.
No, but I'm saying if he's fishing around for a cause, that's not appropriate, right?
That's what I'm saying.
But if he has a cause...
you could always give to Kupat Ha'ir. You could always give to Rameir Balanes.
Right. You can just like Ein Adam Lomed Al Makom Shli B'Chafetz, the person learns what they want to learn, the person gives tzedakah to what they want to give. In the absence of something which I want to give, this is the line of which to follow. Okay, and there is an Indian specifically by relatives, because relatives you should be completely concerned with your relatives. It's even a fascinating Ushalmi, I forget when Isis maybe, it says that somebody was married and then divorced, and the ex-wife got remarried. She's still mibsar chalti salim. It still presses because she was once your relative. So therefore, you still take precedence, give me tzedakah to her. So
is it better to give multiple places, or is it better to support your siblings?
It's better to distribute, but give a priority to your family. Okay, there's a greater percentage to your family than other people. But if you have to, it has to be chesed doesn't begin and end at home. It has to go obviously to other places as well. Otherwise, the society would not be able to exist. He gives various different sources for this from Dvarim and the Sifri. But at the bottom on page 104 here, he brings down an interesting ruling from the Aimek Shela, who was a Hasidic Paisik in the 19th century. I'm just going to read the English. I've been consulted by a God-fearing man whose sister used to live in comfort in her father's house. Now circumstances have deteriorated, and she has only enough for bare necessities. Should her brother use his meiser money to support her so that she can live in comfort? Should she rather use it for poor people who do not have enough for their basic needs? Okay, so it's an interesting question, right? You want to buy? Can you buy your sister a nice car rather than give a real oni, so to speak, money for bread? So a trustee blind Meiser should be used to support his sister. But Rabbi Yechiel Michael Epstein or Shulchan suggests that even when one category has precedence over another, something must be left in the lower category, which is what we were just saying, right? In the connection with the decision of Chazim Sofer, that it may be noted that only one half of the Meiser should, in this connection, the decision of Chazim Sofer response in 251 may be noted. Chazim Sofer says that only one half of the Meiser should be used for a relative. Okay, so that gives you this idea. And he says, let's read it on the inside. We'd say that things were kibshuto, the elu code mean the elu that means you don't have to give to the next level at all. According to this, everybody knows every rich person has lots of relatives who are neem. Certainly a boss. But limited tzedakah has many more relatives. So many of these people who don't have rich relatives will die of starvation. How can we possibly say this? He says, to me, the beer advarin kachin is way. This is clear. It has to be like this. The bavadi ko ba'bayis or ashir no saint tzedakah. Any ba'abas or rich person gives tzedakah. Mechuyli tein chelik aniyim arochokim. He has to give a portion even to aniyim who are more distant. The krov of yitin yoser mishenu krov of. So it's a weighted proportion, but not exclusively to the to the people who are higher up on the list. Okay, so the next thing he goes into is within a given category, there's also a priority list. A woman always takes precedence over a man, a scholar over a non-scholar. For the same level of scholarship, the priority list is Kohen Levi Yisrael. Food has priority over clothing. But Moshe is a fascinating thing. And Moshe Feinstein takes the view that this latter priority list applies only to charity administrators. Right? That is, if you are Gabbai Tzedakah, then we need to be mashgiach over you, and we have to give you a hierarchy. But if you're an individual, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to give to a woman over a man, or a Talmid Chacham or not a Talmid Chacham. It's at your discretion.
I do see over here on the bottom it says that the Shulchan Aruch states that a person should not give all his charity funds to one person.
Right.
Which is what I was asking before, which is it's better to allocate.
Right, it's better to distribute, yes.
But have in mind that it's still you should prioritize your siblings.
There you go. Okay, I think we'll stop here and hope for more people next week.